Chapter 1. You Can't Go Home Again. Phoebe Lang leaned heavily on the rusting wrought-iron gate and peered upward at the old Victorian house looming above her. How long had it been since she had been home? 6 months? 9? Too long. And not long enough. A line from a graduate seminar on Thomas Wolfe flitted through her mind. You can't go home again. Yet here she was. The knot in Phoebe's stomach tightened. Her conscience reprimanded her for neglecting her grandmother. And yet she knew the voice inside her head spoke the truth. But even as she stood in front of the gate, she was aware that her avoidance of this house had nothing to do with lack of devotion. She loved these mountains, loved Asheville, loved Graham, and yet something inside her, something deep down and unreachable, resisted the inexorable pull of home. Too many memories, too much confusion. In Atlanta, 200 miles and 2 decades removed from the memories, Phoebe Lang was another person entirely, a person who had carved out a niche for herself. She hated the noise and the traffic and the seething anger that ran just beneath the skin of such a large city, but the anonymity suited her perfectly. Her life at the university was a product of her own creation. No longer was she the haunted, introverted child she had once been. She had recreated herself, become the vibrant, outgoing young woman she saw reflected in the eyes of those around her. At Emory University, Phoebe had found everything she had ever wanted: love, friends, a place of belonging, intellectual challenge, a sense of purpose. She had finally put the past behind her, so completely, in fact, that her fiancé, Jake Bartlett, teased her mercilessly about being a mystery woman who never talked about herself. "I talk about myself all the time," she had protested the last time the subject had come up. "We talk about everything." He shook his head. "We talk about life, literature, the law, your studies and mine. We talk about books and movies and politics. Sometimes we even talk about theology. I know what you believe about all these things. I know your opinions. Boy, do I know your opinions." He chuckled and leaned forward intently. "I know what's in here." He tapped a forefinger against his head. "But I often think I haven't even begun to fathom what's in here." He moved his hand downward, indicating his heart. Phoebe averted her eyes. "There's nothing much to know, Jake. I was an orphan, raised by my grandmother. I was so little when my mother died that I barely remember it. I just rather focus on the present and the future than dwell on the past." "So you're not holding out on me, mystery woman? Hiding some terrible secret?" He grinned and rolled his eyes. Phoebe laughed. "All right, you caught me. I'm busted." She let out a melodramatic sigh. "Before I came to college, I ran a brothel in my grandmother's house, dealt crystal meth out of the trunk of my car, laundered the money through Swiss bank accounts. I'm filthy rich and on the run from the FBI." "I thought it might be something like that." Jake shrugged. "I'm starving. Let's order pizza." Remembering the conversation and the expression in Jake's eyes when he talked about wanting to know her heart, Phoebe took in a steadying breath. She hadn't counted on how vulnerable loving someone could make her feel. Emotions were so compelling, so raw and unpredictable. She was much more comfortable with intellect, with keeping things on a philosophical level. Yet Jake Bartlett had come into her life and invaded her heart before she had time to get her defenses up. He was a passionate, persuasive man, open about his feelings, ever so sure of what he wanted out of life. And what he wanted, apparently, was Phoebe. Being loved and wanted, Phoebe discovered, was a powerful enticement. She had fallen for him, hard. For the first time in her life, she understood that image of falling in love. It was like missing the first step on a tall staircase and being unable to stop your forward progress.